Following one of the worst, although not surprising, defeats in modern English rugby history, I'm going to give you my thoughts and assessments on each of the individual players' performances, as well as a score out of 10 and an overall man of the match, which will obviously come from the Fijians team. Now, in one of my previous assessment videos, I was relatively lenient to the England players and gave them relatively higher than usual scores, considering their big defeat to Ireland. But the reason for this was because Ireland are one of the world's best teams, ranked world number 1. I sort of did it relatively. Now, in this video, England have lost to Fiji for the first time in history, and the first time in history to a Tier 2 nation. Now, this is going to reflect in some quite harsh scores. Well, not really harsh considering how poor the performance was. And yeah, so I'm going to start off with the front row, consisting of Ellis Genge, Theo Dan and Dan Cole. I'm going to give Ellis Genge a 3.5, Theo Dan a 2.5, and Dan Cole a 2. Now, the reason for this is Ellis Genge, I believe, he was relatively okay around the park, but really lacked any massive control at the scrum time. You'd expect the English pack, the stereotypical England big pack of old, really powerful, to put a dent in the Fijians, but that was simply not the case. And yeah, there was no dominance in the English scrum time, and the Fijians yeah, were able to cope completely with the English scrum, and Ellis Genge around the park was relatively quiet. Theo Dan was not hitting his line-out darts that you'd expect him to, any hooker at the international level too. I understand he's new to this level of rugby, and he's actually one of my favourite players, watching him week in, week out for Saracens. But at this level, you know, the game before a Rugby World Cup and the game before the game in the Rugby World Cup, which could be pivotal in terms of England qualifying for the knockout stages, you need a hooker to hit their darts. Dan Cole, now where do I start with Dan Cole? Look, I've been watching him since the day I started rugby, playing for England. But look, every dog has his day, and unfortunately for Dan Cole, his day was a long time ago. It's a real shame that England aren't bringing youth through in all of the jerseys, but especially that number 3 tight head prop jersey. Dan Cole, he's prides himself on being a very good scrummager. Maybe he is at Premiership level, but on the international stage, he really asserts no dominance in that area. And yeah, very poor from Dan Cole in my opinion. In terms of the second rows, Maro Itoje 3.5, Ollie Chesham a 3.5. Now, the line out was very mixed from England. It was okay in patches. Whether you put that down to Theo Dan or the second rows is up to you. Itoje is one of England's star names really, and unfortunately he didn't really prevail as one of the best forwards on the pitch, and was rather overshadowed by the Fijian second rows and back rows. Ollie Chesham, relatively quiet player usually on the pitch, but does get through a lot of dirty work, such as rucks and all the nitty gritty. But look, not a particularly impressive performance from Ollie Chesham, although he is just back from injury. Now, the highest score so far goes to Courtney Lawes. Courtney Lawes, relatively okay performance from him in what was a very poor English pack. It was his special day for his 100th cap, so I'll just put a little asterisk next to him, because although England did lose, he does still deserve massive amount of appreciation for reaching that milestone, and has been a great servant to English rugby. Jack Willis, now Jack Willis is one of my favourite players, usually watching him play for England. He gets a 3.5. Look, wasn't really impressed. He didn't do an awful lot in my opinion. He's great over the ball, and we just simply didn't see that all too much in this game. He was relatively okay around the park. He did put in some good tackles, but look, playing against a Tier 2 nation such as Fiji, you'd expect English flankers to be dominating in this area and getting turnovers, but that just wasn't the case. Ben Earl, usually one of my favourite players once again for England, bundle of energy, but in this game I thought his accuracy was off. He didn't get an awful lot of opportunity with ball in hand, but yeah, he didn't really impact the game, so he can't get too high of a score. Moving into the English backs, Mitchell I'm giving a 4. And George Ford I'm giving a 3. Potentially that's even kind on George Ford, because I think Ford I was really looking forward to watching him play in this game, because he was playing against a Tier 2 nation with a relatively strong back line. I was thinking, right, this is his chance to unlock the Fijian defence, and it just didn't happen. George Ford, he looked out of ideas, was kicking the ball away awfully lot in the Fijian 22, which is a real pet peeve of mine. I just don't like it when a team in the opposition 22 is kicking the ball away multiple times. Now, even in the opposition half, I know kicking's a part of rugby, but if you've got a strong enough team, any of the top 3, top 4, top 5 teams in World Rugby at the minute would back themselves inside the 22, especially 15 metres out to score a try. And look, we don't even have the opportunity to work as a team and learn and grow on how to score tries if we're kicking the ball away, especially in a Rugby World Cup warm-up match. So George Ford gets the justified 3. Alex Mitchell, I thought, looked strong early on. He was brought in for his speed around the breakdown, good speed of ball, provided a basis for England to score their first try with Johnny May in the corner. His box kicking was relatively good as well, but once again he never really impacted the game hugely. So yeah, he gets a 4. Maybe could get a 4.5 if I'm being kind. Moving into the centres, both these two centres are going to get 3.5. I think, to be honest, these two, especially Manu Tuolangi, I think he fulfilled his role. I think he did his job in the 12 jersey, which is to try and generate front foot ball. So look, the reason he gets a lower score is because I don't feel like they gelled as a centre partnership. I feel like you're playing sort of two of the same players there. A little bit like Jack Van Portfleet and Ben Youngs, they play the same sort of mould, so maybe you do need a different 13, and that's why I would have picked Henry Slade, because in that 13 jersey it does give you something different to the 12 jersey, which helps to keep the defence guessing. Ollie Lawrence, the Premiership Player of the Year, not a bad performance, but just never really got going. He made a couple good outside breaks, and maybe I could push him up to a 4, but I think these two centres also have to take responsibility for the fact that Randrandra and I can't remember his name now, Nea Salevu in the Fijian centre partnership, how incredible they were. I mean, if you're being completely overshadowed by your opposition, you simply can't get a high grade. Moving into the back 3, now Johnny May I'm going to actually give a 4, pushing a 4.5. It was definitely going to be probably about a 5 if it wasn't for Johnny May missing a tackle late on in the game that cost England a try. Johnny May started off and scored a real nice try in the first sort of 10 minutes. Beat the Fijian defender very nicely with some good footwork and went over in the corner for a very optimistic start. But as I just alluded to, he missed a one-on-one tackle with the Fijian winger, which you just simply can't make at this level. And the Fijian winger managed to offload it into Nea Salevu, who scored the try. So look, Johnny May has to do better defensively despite good attacking performance. Max Malins, I'm going to give a 3.5. Early on, I thought he competed aerially very good. I think he got up and won some ball back. But what was a positive start was then overshadowed by getting bounced off by the Fijian backs, and defensively not being potentially what you'd expect from a world-class winger or even an international class winger. And then he did have a running to score a try, although a difficult run in. He did get bundled into touch. Now, look, if that's Mark Talea, Korobete, Will Jordan, I just feel like they're all scoring in that scenario. He either goes for the corner and makes it, or you come off of that right foot and step in field. Freddie Stewart, very disappointing from Freddie Stewart. Maybe this is a little bit harsh at a 2.5, maybe a 3 he deserves, but the play in which you'd put your last dollar on being a consistent performer, he just didn't turn up. Lots of drop balls from Freddie Stewart, kicks out on the full, was very disappointing overall. So look, this is a very poor performance from the English teams, as you can see reflected in the scores. If I had to give a man of the match from the English side, man of the team is probably the way of wording it, I'm probably going to give it to Alex Mitchell, although it was a reluctant decision to pick English man of the match. Now, on the more positive side, just going to run through the Fijians. Now, I'm personally not too familiar with a lot of the Fijian players, so I've just picked out some key performers in which I'll then give a grade to. Nasila Sila in the second row I thought was phenomenal. Real problem in the line out and around the pitch. He plays like a back rower. He gets an 8.5 from me. Very, very impressive performance from him. Albert Tuasui of Gloucester, I'm going to give it an 8 to. I thought he was real powerful around the park, sort of industrial clean outs and just masses of power. Was really troublesome for the English, especially in the pick and go game. Now, Muntz at the fly half. Now, usually when you reflect on Fiji over the years, you'd say, look, great team, but they lack the structure to be sort of world class. Now, Muntz, I felt, really brought this to the Fijian side. He nailed every single kick from the tee, which ultimately steered Fiji to the victory. Now, if he missed one of these kicks, that would mean England are within 7 points and could win it late on in the game. England didn't have that opportunity because of the execution of Muntz off the kicking tee. I thought his kicks to touch completely outclassed George Ford. which helped Fiji get on the front foot. Also, in the 12th jersey, Radradra, 8.5. I thought he was phenomenal. Some real powerful carries through the heart of the English defence. I think bouncing off George Ford especially. Great performance from Radradra. Salevu, I've spoken about him already. He's just utter class. Complete flair all over the park. He's just phenomenal. Gets a 9 from me and obviously scored one of Fiji's tries. Now, Ratavamanda, sorry, I've butchered that name. He was phenomenal. As I say, he set up the try for Salevu with the pass, the left-handed pass inside. Look, he skinned Johnny May, and that was one of the turning points in the game. So, look, if I had to give a man of the match overall and the Fijian man of the match, I'm going to give it to Muntz, simply because I feel Fiji have always had flair, always had power, but he really brought a neat edge to their game, a very clinical edge, and one that could really take them to the sort of world-class level. So, look, Muntz takes the man of the match for me. As I say, real poor performances from all the English players. If I had to mention some positives on the English side, I will just mention Marcus Smith coming off the bench did look impressive. I've given him a 5.5. And on the worst side of the bench players, Joe Marler, 3.5. I believe he could be getting cited for what looked initially to my naked eye a dangerous tackle. So he could be cited, which would bring even more problems to the English squad ahead of the Rugby World Cup. But yeah, overall very poor from the English. I'd like to know what your thoughts are on the players in the comment section down below. Once again, credit to Fiji, and yeah, a long road back for England. But yeah, we'll see how they get on in the World Cup. But thank you very much for watching.